So I may or may not have mentioned at some point that I wanted to try to work on a DLC. And specifically part of this is because this guy, Ortail, I kind of need to figure out what he's doing. He isn't doing much of anything at the moment. I've got a debug mode on, so I can always spawn these guys. And right now, this is kind of how it goes down. Ortail will, at some point, whether or not he does it right now or not, get hungry and eat some guys. And there he goes for the other one as well. And there you go, perfect. And when he does that, he kind of gets this... Hold on, I'll get to this in a second. It kind of levels up this, and eventually the plan is to kind of have several consecutive unlocks. Probably about 4. And they're all somewhat inspired by the sciencey stuff. So if I put this back to how it was, this is essentially what the menu looks like. And actually the menu is not done. The menu is lagging behind everything else a little bit. This specific button works. None of the others really work. I think actually 2 of them should be unlocked. And this is one part of this. So this is very small. It's very basic. And you just fly around and you collect these little bits. And then you hand them over to the fragment here. Or the planet, whatever you'd like to call it. And I don't know if it's particularly obvious, but you can also buy these little upgrades and things like that. And the thing is actually a little bit of an issue I have with this, is that it isn't necessarily obvious that these don't do anything for this particular stage. You can basically do this exact thing all day and nothing much is going to change because none of those upgrades actually affect the game that you're playing. Instead what they do is they affect this thing, which is the second little mini game unlock. And it's a bit different. You still have your little character who basically controls the same. And you collect these points from here. It's kind of meant to resemble a proton pump, just a tiny bit. I don't know if it really does or if it's actually very successful in that, but there it is. And essentially, when I fill up my battery, or I could do it before, but I'll wait to fill up my battery, I'm going to walk over here, and I'm going to deposit all of this stuff over there. And I guess the purpose of this part is because there's these little AIs, or, well, NPCs that you have here. And they will do the exact same thing. They will fill up their little battery, then they'll come over here, and they will do this. Now, essentially, what the upgrades do is increase the number of these trees which spawn in each of these little zones. And that's pretty much that. You can buy another one. You can buy many, in fact. And it does pick up a bit when you get a few. It takes a little bit of time. But that's basically the gist of it. That's all that really happens. And, you know, I can think of ways to expand this out a little bit. But this is the basic idea. And this is the one that kind of stumped me. And you might see why, because it's kind of in a mess. The first two, they were fairly coherent. This one is a bit less coherent. It's kind of all over the place. you have all these guys, just like, I don't even know what that is doing up here. Let me just get rid of that actually. So you have one of these guys. It's a little bit laggy as well because it's very poorly optimized. And then these will basically, they'll move over here, then they'll move over here, then they'll move over here. Another weird thing about this stage is that it's only laggy for the first like 10 or 15 seconds, and then it performs completely fine. And eventually they get over here. Okay. And then all the way over here. And then they basically just repeat the entire cycle. Now why they do this, I'm not entirely clear. It just kind of worked out that way. So essentially my thinking is that I would pretty much scrap this whole particular environment because I can't think of anything to do with basically this whole place. It looks almost okay, but then you realize everything that's going on is basically, I mean, the player isn't actually doing anything, you know? What am I defending? You don't know. So then they go on here, they get one of these guys, they take him over here. Very simple stuff. And it's a little bit, yeah, incoherent. So anyway, back to this. And I said I would get to this later. I decided to kind of repurpose that last one, which was slightly based on the, I mean, I don't know if it even comes through at all, the structure of the ATP synthase, where there's these three components, and then there's a rotor in the middle. And the components, they stay where they are, but then the rotor rotates, and it changes the state of each of these three things. Even though they're functionally identical, it changes what they're doing. And you can look up online exactly how that works. It's quite cool and interesting. But this is maybe some kind of recreation of what that is. If I can figure out exactly what I'm doing with it. So the idea is there's going to be two voidlings in here. Or that'll be a task. Put two voidlings in here. Then in this one, or perhaps when you click, actually it's kind of going the opposite direction to what I was envisioning, but it doesn't matter. You click, and then this circle basically means you gotta supply energy. And how you're gonna do that? Well, I do have a game about supplying energy, which is that photosynthesis mechanism. And then when the triangle is pointing, you'll supply mass. And how that's going to be functionally different, I'm not too sure. I'm really not too sure. I've kind of backed into this idea. But anyway, then it repeats. And that's great. It looks very nice. It seems very cool. The issue is that very few of maybe the first one counts as a game, and then the others, maybe the second one counts as a game. It's a very macro kind of game. The third one really isn't anything. And then this kind of just looks nice, but what I wanted to do with this one is to tie in elements of the others little mini games that I've made, and then kind of put them all together into a cohesive whole, so that you can actually play it and it seems like a game. So that's the theory. Whether or not that's possible remains to be seen. But, yeah, that's pretty much what I've been working on. So, thank you for watching, and please continue to watch if you would like to see how this turns out, because there is at least a a 50-50 chance that I will ever complete it.